Во имя Отца и Сына и Святаго Духа. All right, dear brothers and sisters, we continue on this Lord's Day Eve, Resurrection Day Eve, Воскресенье, when it's about to end, when the sun will go down. We continue answering you, Korra, and the Muslim Dyer guys, clarifying all your misconceptions, friends, educate you about our book, as you call us, the Ahlul Kitab, yes? And by doing so, cleaning up after all those dog logic cults, those grifters, those Western heretics, those mushrikeen, kuffar, okay? All those pagans who preach the heresy of modalism, sin, filthy behavior, arrogance, all the anti-Christian things in the world, they do, including behaving as clown and grifting money for their channels, because according to our faith, we don't allow to do such a thing, to be career Christian and take money for our faith, our spiritual endeavors and apologetics. No, we do it for free. And that money should not be supporting you and your fancy house equipment, enrich yourself, make a career for yourself. Instead of that money, tell it to the people to give instead to the poor, not to you. Shame on you. You're antichrists. The Christos commanded you to give all the money to the poor, only to live for yourself the things that needed for your own lives to survive, not above it. Now, we're answering you, Korra, as we promised, 2 or 3, I don't remember, of your claims. It's all written down, so I won't forget here. And the first one is you appeal to our book, Ishaya, the prophet Isaiah, and you appeal to Isaiah 42. So let's go to Isaiah 42 straight from the Hebrew, because you claim that and you were right, by the way, that the word there is related to Muslim, and it points out that we are all Muslims, and we are. I mean, you say that the patriarchs, the prophets, were all Muslims. Well, we are too, yes, lowercase Muslim, which means submission to God. And I'll show you from the Hebrew how it is related. You don't need to appeal to some Western scholar who interpret the word. They don't know the Hebrew really. They don't know the Hebrew fluently. They study it shallowly in their secular universities. They don't understand the spiritual meanings of the root words. They don't know how to relate each word really. I heard them many times. They're ignorant. And they are not spiritual authority anyway, so don't go to them. Now, let's go to the verse. Well, first of all, that whole chapter of Isaiah 42, as our saints teach, our church fathers, that is a prophecy of Christos, who will be coming in the first coming. A prophecy of his first coming in the flesh, in the form of a slave. And we will not interpret all the first parts. Some of them we already have in previous episodes, in previous videos. Yes. So we will focus on what you said, the verse you appeal to, and we will show what the saints in themselves teach about that verse. And straight from the Hebrew too, as Saint Hieronymus, who was fluent in the Hebrew, he interpreted himself. So it goes in the Hebrew, Mi ayver ki im abdi vehresh ke מלאכי אשלח. מי עיוור כמשולם, this is the word, ועיוור כעבד יבא. So it says, who is blind but my servant, or deaf as the messenger that I will send? Who is blind as he that it is now that word meshulam? It means both things, and I'll show you from the saints. Both aspects, that is, related of the same root word, different meanings, but also the different meanings, the distinct meanings, they are also related to each other in another aspect. Okay, it's very deep and complicated, the Hebrew, because the Hebrew, as Saint Augustinus of Regius Hippo taught, it is the Adamic language preserved in the line of Abraham from Eber. That's why it was called on his name. Iber, yes, Iberit, and so Saint Augustinus of Hippo, this is the Adamic language, hence is a holy spiritual language given to Adam straight from God. It is the only language, as I mentioned before, that is not, it doesn't have any alphabets, because alphabets, the written words and the written letters are earthly, man-made. They're not spiritual. The spiritual is the invisible, is the speech, okay, itself. So, this language was always orally spoken, and it was written down, but it was written down in different forms, in different alphabets, according to the lingua franca that was in the time. First, it was written in the Canaanite, which they were the rulers of that area, the land, the Holy Land. They were the first, and that's why it was called before the land of Canaan. Yes, and afterwards it was the Arameans and the Assyrians. The lingua franca was the Aramaic, hence the alphabet was theirs. Okay, so it was changed according to, it was written down accordingly as the lingua franca was, but it never had an alphabet because it is the only holy language of God. Okay, so back to the verse. Let's see what exactly the saints, who are the sole authority of interpreting the scriptures, as I over and over emphasize, to point out that this is our paradigm, not interpreting ourselves, okay? So, and they are infallible under the Spirit, the class of interpreters, heirs of the apostles. So, what does it say? What do the saints teach about it? Let's see each one of them, which we have time for now. Point by point here. So as I mentioned, the first one is Saint Hieronymus. In his commentary, the homily on Isaiah, he has many homilies. The saints, the church fathers interpreted whole books, not as the false rabbi claims that I don't want to mention his name, starts with a T and last surname is with an S. He doesn't deserve even to be mentioned, okay? Because he hates our saints and lie about them and claims that they were anti-Semites and all sort of nonsense and twisting the words. Anyway, so this verse, I didn't translate it into English first, so let's do that first. So in the English, I did. Okay, not the last one. Okay, so the last one, the last part of it, it says, who is blind as that as he that is in fullness, wholehearted, meaning in full dedication to God, yes, which is the original the spiritual state of Israel. But when he sins, he becomes blind, and that's what the saints teach. And blind as the slave of Yehovah. Again, the same principle. Israel is the slave of Yehovah. He was given that spiritual privilege, but he fell from God's grace to sin, and he became blind and deaf. Okay? This is what the saints teach about it. It's about the representative, because why it's also in the singular form. It is the representative of Israel, the false priest who was not, and all those who were not pious at the time, yes? So it is a prophecy also, as the saints teach, about the blindness of the Jews in the time of Christos, our Lord, that they didn't accept him as the Messiah, the last Messiah, the Son of God. They rejected him, and that is because they were blind and deaf at heart and in mind and everything. So this is about that, also in his time, but also in the double fulfillment in the time of Christos. They were still came to that state again, okay, as they always did. They repented, became holy in a period, and then fell to sin again. And again, the cycle was repeated over and over again until the time of Christ, that they rejected him. They weren't pious in that time, most of them, because they were consumed by the sect of the Pharisees, which were in their teachings, yes, in their teaching, by the way, Libiano always come to Christians with this claim that why did Christos, the Lord, contradicted himself when he said that follow all teachings of the Pharisees to the tittle, to the word. They are in the seat of Moses. What they teach is correct. Yes? So why did he say, don't do this like the Pharisee do and all that? Afterwards, because there is a distinction. The teaching in the theory, all that is written, the teachings, all those, and the oral tradition in their time was not then corrupted. Later on, the later generation, much later, the rabbis you hear, the Rambam, Maimonides, Rashi, all those, they are already in close to modern times, way after. That's not the oral tradition. They claim, the Jews today, that it is. We disagree. It's not the oral tradition that was in the hands of the Jews at the time of the Second Temple. That oral tradition, with the addition of the New Covenant doctrines, that was passed, the true faith, only in the hands of the Christians. Okay? The followers of Christos, his disciples, their heirs, and so on. The saints. So, this is what the verse means. Now, not only that Saint Hieronymus interprets, but he also interprets that word, Meshulam, that you link to Islam and Muslim. Yes, it is related, because Arabic and the Hebrew are related languages, because they are cousin languages. Because one came from Ishmael, the uncle of Jacob, Jacob. So, therefore, the Arabs and the Israelites are cousin peoples. Yes? So that's why the relations in the languages, okay? So that word, which is also related, of course, as you know, Muslim friends, to salam, Islam, salam, Muslim, the same root word. And the same thing that is the same word really in the Hebrew, which is the word shalem. Shalem, like in Jerusalem, Shalem, Shalem, yes? And Meshulam, also, it is the same root word to describe a state of someone, okay? Now, of a subject. Now, Shalem, as the saints teach, like Saint Hieronymus and Saint Augustinus and others, Saint Augustinus is the main one who pointed out this elaborately about that, because this is the word which related also to the word Sheba, the same, because it is the same, starts with the same letter, Shin, the letter Shin. And why? Because God, as it says in Hebrew, Hishlim melachto. He completed all his work of creation in 7 days. In 7 days, that's it. That is the relation for that word with the number 7, a holy number which, as the saint teaches, signifies completion and also peace by extension. They are related, shalom. Okay? Because peace, the state of peace, which is what the state of God was in the state of calmness, in perfect calmness, divine calmness, not earthly one, of completion. That's why it says Shabbath melachto. It doesn't say rested like you say in the English and all that. No. It says Shabbath, which means ceased from doing. And then v'inafash doesn't mean refreshed. Refreshed? What did you get this from? It doesn't say refreshed. It says v'inafash means in that what I told you, in the state of calmness, which is the same root word as I explained, with a word for nefesh, nafs in Arabic. Okay? So that's why those words are related, the Arabic and the Hebrew. Yes? The word means completion, means wholeness, fullness, shalem, okay? Which is what really peace is, yes? But Saint Hieronymus, in his Latin Vulgata, translated that word in a different way, although he knows both meanings. So the word also is related, is also, shalem is to pay also, payment. Okay? When you pay, the process is completed, completions. That's why they're related to money also, to the earthly thing also. Okay? So he translated into his Vulgata, in the Latin it's qui venudatus est, which means he who is sold. Okay, this is that word in that form is the word for the state of the subject who is sold. You know, meshulam. Okay, and that is why, exactly as I explained to you, why we need to read all versions of the Bible in holistically, not just one of them. All of them should be regarded as holistically, as the four gospels, complementary to each other because of those different pieces of information, additional spiritual knowledge, additional information about a verse. Otherwise, we wouldn't need several of them. We would need only one if they're all be identical. For what? You think that they couldn't command everybody to learn the Hebrew and everyone recite in Arabic, although most Muslims are not fluent in the Arabic, but I don't know how that thing is exactly in your faith. I don't stick my nose to your faith. You know better than me. But In our paradigm, this is how it goes. A language, the Roman languages were sanctified, the Greek, the Latin, later by extension the Russian, which was the Russian alphabet was based on the Greek, and it was created, that language, and the Cyrillic, yes, from Kyrillus and Methodius, the holy saints who created that for the Slavs and converted all the Slavs, most of the Eastern Slavs, yes, and so that's and also the Old English, yes, in the time of the when the Britons, the Celts in the Anglo-Saxons were started as pious according to the Catholic Orthodox faith. Then they were corrupted and became Protestants and all that. That's a different story. But in their time, the Old English also was sanctified to the church as a church language, and so on. So we're getting out of the subject a little, but it is connected. So he translated it like this, and that's why it is all complementary, read holistically, the manuscripts, as I said. Now, Saint Johannes Chrysostomus of Constantinople, the Holy Patriarch of Constantinople, in his homilies, yes, also, he interpreted the same as the blind, the stubborn-hearted Israelites who were blind to listen to the prophet and accept the prophet, and also, yes, and Saint Augustine, as I said, that the Israelites, he teaches that they failed to recognize Jesus Christos, the Son of God, as their Messiah, which they waited for, and hence they stopped. They refused to be light to the nations, which is what the Messiah, Jesus Christos, our Lord, was, the light to the nations. So this is what the saints teach about this issue. We took that video about one point very long, but it was important. So we stop it now, and we will see you right away in the second part for this evening, before we wrap up. So, and we'll move to the other point which Korra made, and we'll continue to the next part. Please like, subscribe, comment, watch all the way through, which is the most important thing, and to help this channel, and we'll see you next. Okay?